Russian forces carried out attacks using missiles and drones on Ukrainian territory on the night of October 22, 23. The Ukrainian Air Force reported that Russian units used 13 Shahed-class drones, one unidentified drone, and a Kh-59 cruise missile. All these targets were neutralized by Ukraine. In turn, the Ukrainian Southern Operational Command reports 9 Russian airstrikes in which an unspecified number of K-31 anti-radar missiles were used. Additionally, Ukrainian Defense Forces shot down 9 Shahed drones that were aimed at port facilities in the Odessa Oblast. Russia regularly attacks these areas, especially facilities related to grain exports. The Ukrainian authorities anticipate that Russia will continue to seek to disrupt the Ukrainian grain trade, especially in the context of growing Russian exports, confirmed by the recent grain contract with China worth 2,007 trillion rubles, approximately $26,005 billion, signed on October 17. On October 23rd, Russian units conducted offensive operations near Kupiansk, making little progress. Geolocation analysis from October 22nd suggests that these advances took place southeast of the town of Iwanauka, which lies 20 kilometers southeast of Kupiansk. One Russian military commentator speculated that Russian troops were moving towards Sinkivka and Pietropavlovka, towns located 8 and 7 kilometers from Kupiansk, respectively. The Ukrainian General Staff emphasized that their forces repelled Russian attempts to attack in these areas. Kostyantin Mashevets, a Ukrainian military observer, indicated that units from various Russian regiments and divisions carried out attacks near Ivanivka and Kislovka. Mashevets also emphasized that Russian brigades were ineffective in attacking the area around Sinkivka. Ivan Shevtsov, spokesman for the Ukrainian brigade, indicated that the Russians changed their tactics, carrying out various forms of attacks towards Kupiansk and Lyman. According to Russian sources, Ukrainian forces unsuccessfully attacked the Kupiansk area on October 23rd. The Russian Ministry of Defense assured that it had repelled Ukraine's attacks. Additionally, a Russian military blogger talked about a Ukrainian counterattack near Petropavlovka. At the same time, the Russians conducted offensive operations on the World Crimea line, but without significant successes. According to one Russian blogger, their forces were very close to Makiivka, but another source only confirmed their presence 2 kilometers from Svatovo. Another Russian report spoke of limited progress in the forest near the town of Serebryanska. The Ukrainian General Staff confirmed the repulse of Russian attacks at various points along this line. Fighting also took place near Siversk. On October 24th, Nikopol, located in the Dnipropetrovsk Oblast, was the target of 2 separate Russian attacks using combat drones and artillery. As a result of this aggression, 1 resident was injured. This information was provided by Governor Sergei Lysak. Governor Lysak added that the injured 36-year-old man was taken to hospital due to shrapnel wounds. His health condition was described as stable. Reports show that as a result of hostile actions, a hotel, a veterinary facility, a vehicle, and the power grid were damaged. The city of Nikopol, located on the almost dry Kakhovka Reservoir and across from the Russian-occupied Enerhodar nuclear power plant and Zaporizhia, frequently experiences Russian attacks. Russian units conducted combat operations in the Dnipropetrovsk Oblast during the night and morning, using artillery and missiles. Sergei Lysak also added that during the attacks in the Sinelnikov Oblast, Russian forces caused damage to a cafe, an educational institution, a financial institution, a pharmacy, and 10 residential buildings. Fortunately, no fatalities were reported. Russian domestic production of artillery shells, supplemented by increased munitions imports from North Korea, will likely enable Russian forces to maintain sufficient artillery fire in Ukraine in the 24th year. However, this amount will likely be lower than in year 2022. The head of the Intelligence Center of the Estonian Defense Forces, Colonel Ants Kiviselg, stated on October 20th that Russia still had about 4 million artillery shells left, which Russian forces could use in low-intensity warfare for an additional year. Kiviselg noted that there are reports that North Korea has sent up to 1,000 ammunition containers to Russia, each containing between 300 and 500 rounds of artillery ammunition. Kiviselg estimated that North Korea could therefore supply Russia with between 300,000 and 500,000 rounds of ammunition, which could last up to 1 month at its current daily consumption of around 10,000 rounds per day. Ukrainian military analyst Colonel Petro Chernik reported on October 23rd that Russian forces were currently currently firing between 10,000 and 15,000 rounds per day, significantly lower than the summer 22 rate of 45,000 to 80,000 rounds per day. However, Western sources and satellite images have confirmed that supplies from North Korea, likely consisting mainly of artillery shells, have increased dramatically since Russian and North Korean authorities apparently began more official military technical cooperation in September, as ISW previously reported, and North Korea will likely provide further supplies. Based on Western estimates of Russian artillery production capacity and continued artillery exports from North Korea, Russia will likely be able to maintain an overall sufficient rate of fire for the foreseeable future. While Russia's overall decline in rate of fire could make it more difficult for Russian forces to conduct large-scale offensive operations, Russian forces are unlikely to face widespread shortages that would chronically hamper defensive operations, and the decline in rate of fire will not provide Ukraine with a forced advantage. In an online speech on October 24th during the parliamentary summit of the Crimea platform, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky announced that Ukrainian forces will soon be able to control the airspace over Russia-occupied Crimea. He pointed out that a series of operations conducted by Ukraine against the Russian Black Sea Fleet in Crimea weakened Russian defense structures in the region. Although Ukraine does not currently have complete dominance in the airspace over the peninsula, Zelensky is convinced that it is only a matter of time. The president also signaled that Russia plans to establish a new naval base in the Abkhazia region in the part of Georgia it occupies, with the aim of protecting its ships from Ukrainian missiles and drones. Ukraine's allies confirmed information about the weakening of the Russian Black Sea Fleet. In early October, British Defense Minister James Heppey stated that Ukraine's actions had led to a significant weakening of the Russian position in the Black Sea. In recent months, Ukrainian forces have inflicted serious losses on Russian troops operating in occupied Crimea and the Black Sea. On September 22nd, a missile attack on the headquarters of the Black Sea Fleet in Sevastopol resulted in the death of many Russian officers. Currently, the second parliamentary summit of the Crimean platform is taking place in Prague. Since the first such meeting, which took place on August 23, 2001, representatives from many countries from different continents, as well as non-governmental and intergovernmental organizations, including the European Union, have participated in it. According to information reported by the Financial Times on October 24th, Ukraine has converted U.S.-supplied AIM-9 Sidewinder missiles into surface-to-air missiles. The decision to change the purpose of the missiles was made in response to the need for air defense. The media reported on this strategy in early October, describing its provisional nature. The modified missiles are intended to support Ukraine during the winter in the event of potential Russian attacks on energy infrastructure. The cooperation of Ukrainian and American engineers also resulted in the adaptation of the Soviet Buk anti-aircraft launcher to fire missiles produced in the USA, which was confirmed by press sources. On October 23rd, the Ukrainian military conducted offensive operations in the western part of the Zaporizhia Oblast, but no concrete or confirmed progress was recorded. The General Staff of Ukraine emphasized that their military forces are continuing the offensive towards the city of Melitopol, which is located in the western part of Zaporizhia. In turn, the Russian Ministry of Defense announced that the Ukrainian attack had been repelled near the town of Robotyne. Some Russian military bloggers suggested that Ukrainian troops conducted offensive operations on the Robotyne Verbove line and northwest of Robotyne towards the town of Kopani, located 5 kilometers northwest of Robotyne. Despite this, according to them, Russian troops managed to repel these attacks. Another Russian military blogger noted that local skirmishes and positional fighting are ongoing in the area west of Robotyne, specifically in the sector between Zaporizhia and Piatikatki. According to information from Russian sources, Russian troops have taken back from Ukrainian forces some areas that they had recently captured in the eastern part of the Kherson Oblast. However, they stressed that Ukrainian units were still in the area. Certain Russian military experts emphasized that Russian forces carried out a successful counterattack in the town of Krinky, which lies 30 kilometers east of Kherson and 2 kilometers from the Dnieper. Geolocation material found and published on October 23 confirms that Ukrainian troops occupied the areas north of the town of Pidstepny, which is located 20 kilometers east of Kherson and 3 kilometers from the Dnieper River. Russian sources indicate that the Ukrainian army continues operations on the eastern bank between the towns of Krinky and Pidstepny, aiming to break through the Pidstepny-Pishchanivka sector towards Olesky, located 5 kilometers southeast of Kherson. Ukrainian military expert Konstantin Mashovets noted that Russian forces appear to be forming a so-called mobile tactical reserve in the Oleshko area, consisting of motorized rifle units and battalions from various private military companies. The aim of this group would be to respond quickly in conflict zones on the eastern shore. Mashovets also noted that Russia was regrouping certain units of the 58th Combined Army from the southern military district from the western Zaporizhia area towards the Kherson Oblast. This indicates that the Russian command treats Ukrainian activities on the eastern bank as a serious threat. As part of the temporary corridor across the Black Sea, nearly 700,000 metric tons of grain were transferred, which was confirmed by Mykola Solsky, minister responsible for Ukraine's agri-food policy, during the meeting of the Council of the European Union in Luxembourg, as reported by the Ukrainian company Ukragro-Consult on October 24th. This corridor, launched in August, resulted in the arrival of 38 naval vessels in Ukrainian ports, and 30 of them were successfully loaded and sent on their way. They mainly transport grain to European and African countries. Solsky emphasized that the effectiveness of this operation is possible thanks to the support of the Ukrainian armed forces and the trust of international allies. The number of maritime vessels using this corridor is increasing day by day. Unlike the previous route leading straight to the Bosphorus Strait as part of the Black Sea Grain Initiative, ships are currently sailing closer to the shores of Ukraine, but also to NATO countries such as Romania and Bulgaria to increase safety. It is worth adding that, unlike the previous grain initiative, which ended in July after Russia left it, ships now also transport metal goods from Ukraine. Moreover, successful Ukrainian operations against the Russian Black Sea Fleet prompted Russian naval units to retreat. This, in turn, encourages other shipowners to use this Ukrainian corridor, despite the risks associated with the political situation. Ukrainian military units made a slight shift in the western part of the Zaporizhia Oblast, and on October 25th continued offensive operations in the Bakhmut area. Geolocation-based information released on October 24th suggests that Ukrainian troops have made further, albeit slight, advances west of Robotyne. Official sources from the Ukrainian General Staff indicate some, although not entirely specific, successes in the region west of Verbove, which lies 9 kilometers west of Robotyne. On October 24th, the spokesman for the Ukrainian Ground Forces, Lieutenant Colonel Volodymyr Fityo, confirmed that Ukrainian units were conducting offensive operations in the vicinity of Klishchivka, located 7 kilometers southwest of Bakhmut, and in the area of Andriivka, which is 10 kilometers southwest of the same town. On October 25th, Russian military units carried out offensive operations along the Kupiansk-Svatovi line, although no specific achievements were recorded on their part. A military blogger from Russia suggested that the Russians captured some imprecisely defined Ukrainian positions in the Kupiansk area. Nevertheless, the Institute for War Studies, ISW, could not confirm this information with visual evidence. According to the information provided by the Ukrainian General Staff, the Russians unsuccessfully tried to attack several towns near Kupiansk and Swatovia, including Sinkovka, Pietropavlovka, Ivanivka, Makiivka, and Nadia. Additionally, information from the Russian media indicates an attack by Russian forces on the evening of October 24th in the Kislivka area. According to Russian sources, on October 25th, Ukrainian forces tried to carry out an offensive on the Kupiansk-Swatowe-Kremina line, but their actions did not bring the expected results. The Russian Ministry of Defense reported that their forces responded to Ukrainian attack attempts in the vicinity of towns such as Sinkovka, Timkivka, Ivanivka, Zahorykiivka, Nadia, Dibrova, and Hryhorivka. Again, a Russian military expert claimed that the Russians repelled the Ukrainian offensive in the Yampolivka area. On October 25th, Russian military units launched offensive operations near Avdiivka, achieving some successes on the battlefield. Geolocation data from the previous day suggests that the Russians were advancing northwest from the town of Krasnohorivka, which is located near Avdiivka. The Ukrainian General Staff reported that Russian attacks in the area of several towns near Avdiivka were unsuccessful. The spokesman of the Ukrainian Group of Forces Tavrisk, Colonel Oleksandr Shtupun, pointed to a decrease in the intensity of Russian attacks in this region. In turn, an eminent Russian military expert spoke of the significant tactical success achieved by Russia near Avdiivka. Other sources suggest Russian advances towards Novokalinov. Both Russian and Ukrainian sources refer to the inspection of the Avdiivka waste heap, but there is no clarity as to its current status. On October 23rd, a Ukrainian reserve officer released satellite imagery indicating that between October 10th and 20, Russian forces had lost over 109 military vehicles in the vicinity of Avdiivka. The lost machines included armored fighting vehicles, tanks, and armored personnel carriers. The officer noted that these losses were higher than those recorded during previous confrontations with Russia elsewhere in Ukraine. However, comments on the number of vehicles destroyed were ambiguous, with some estimates of around 200 units lost around Avdiivka. Moreover, a Russian military specialist pointed out that on October 24th, Ukrainian forces launched a counterattack, regaining control of the town of Berdych, located northwest of Avdiivka. The president of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, emphasized that the Ukrainian military is preparing for the upcoming Russian autumn-winter offensive on Ukrainian territory, especially after the latest Russian drone attacks that took place on the night of October 24th, 25. Information from Ukrainian military sources indicates that Ukrainian defense systems managed to destroy a total of 11 Russian Shahed-class drone aircraft in the Khmelnytsky and Mykolaiv oblasts. Zelensky added that the country is mobilizing to defend itself against Russia's planned airstrikes on Ukrainian energy infrastructure in the fall and winter. He also indicated that Ukraine was considering conducting its own operations against Russian military targets. The president emphasized that Russia is aware of Ukraine's potential actions against its military facilities in Crimea and on Russian territory. As a result, Russian forces began moving the Black Sea Fleet away from Crimea and regrouping aircraft further from the Ukrainian border, likely as a reaction to previous Ukrainian actions against the Russian fleet and air forces. On October 25th, information from Russia indicated that Ukrainian forces had intensified their operations on the eastern or left bank of the Kherson Oblast, securing their positions in various locations in the region. Russian sources continuing reports from this area report that the Ukrainians have positions in the town of Krinky, which lies 30 kilometers northeast of the Kherson Oblast and only 2 kilometers from the Dnieper River. Additionally, Ukrainian forces are also present near the Antonivsky bridges, both rail and road. A prominent Russian commentator closely monitoring the situation along the Dnieper and on its eastern bank reported that units of the Russian 810th Marine Brigade of the Black Sea Fleet had removed Ukrainian forces from Krinky. He also said that on the night of October 24th, 25, the Ukrainians resumed their land operations on a larger scale, operating from the swampy areas north of Oleski, which is 7 kilometers south of Kherson and 4 kilometers from the Dnieper River. The same expert emphasized that Ukrainian assault groups were trying to penetrate towards various towns, including Pishchenivka, Poima, and Pidstepny, which are located 14, 12, and 18 kilometers east of Kherson, respectively, and not far from the Dnieper River. According to his account, Ukrainian soldiers reached the northern part of Pishchenivka, but were pushed out by the Russians. Another Russian military expert suggested that Ukrainian forces were approaching Pidstepny from the direction of the Antonivsky Railway Bridge. However, the ISW, Institute of War Studies, did not confirm the presence of any evidence indicating the advance of Ukrainian forces on the eastern bank. Only a few Russian sources claimed that the Ukrainians had resumed their operations on a larger scale in the region.